Hi, I'm Deborah.
And I'm Michael.
We got married in 2015 and we were stoked to start our new lives together.
Unfortunately, we were also staring at a mountain of student loan debt, $170,000 to be exact.
Over the past 3 years, we have worked hard and have paid off over $89,000.
At the same time, we have traveled to the Virgin Islands, Indonesia, and around the United States.
We've only got 8 months left until we are debt-free and have many more travel plans ahead of us.
With everything we've learned, we want to help you tackle your debt and simplify your life so you can live out your dreams too.
And this is how we did it. Hello.
Hello.
Well, I'm Deborah.
I'm Michael.
And we are going to be talking a little bit about our finances. If you have watched our past video, we went over our budget and how to create a budget. And more importantly, why is it so important to make a budget?
That's right. And if you haven't watched the budget video, click that button because you need to build your budget before you touch on the topic we're going to talk about today.
Which is
an emergency fund.
It's an emergency fund.
I can't decide, budget or emergency fund, which one's more important, but top two.
Yeah.
Most important things you can be doing for your finances.
So an emergency fund is a safety net, for lack of a better word. It'll keep you from getting yourself in a pickle or a stressful situation that otherwise you don't need to be in.
A lot of people are going to drift towards the negative. They're going to think about like blowing a tire on their car or losing $150 out of their purse or their cell phone dropped in the toilet. All emergencies, all negative things. But there's also positives. Unexpected baby. Or one of the ones
Wait, that's a positive?
But it could also be something like you overpaid on your student debt because you were super ambitious and thought you had enough money for the month, but you forgot about the electric bill or your internet. So it's there as a safety net for everything, assuming it's an emergency. That is the key. Is an emergency going to Vegas?
I mean, it depends how lucky you are that week.
No.
Oh,
no,
it's not.
Scuba certification, not an emergency.
Shopping spree, not an emergency. Oh, my mother-in-law is coming in town and I need to buy new towels. Not an emergency.
It's very important that it stay emergency fund.
So now that we know what an emergency fund is for, now is the reason why it is so important. Emergency fund is extremely important to have because, like I said, it could seriously get you out of a pickle. What it does is it allows you to have a fund that you know, without having to go into every situation with stress, that if something happens in life, that there's an emergency fund waiting for you to kind of be there to help you out if you need it. We actually have a perfect, beautiful example of why an emergency fund is so necessary. About 2 months ago, our car was stolen. Dun, dun, dun. A very, very stressful situation. It was stressful.
Yep.
Was made drastically less stressful because we had an emergency fund. Instead of going, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? How are we going to pay for this? We go, oh my goodness, this stinks. What do we do? We know how we're going to pay for it.
Yep.
By the grace of God, our car has been found. It was driven to Phoenix, actually, and they picked it up. Because of the insurance we had, we didn't actually have a lot to cover rental cars and those kind of expenses over these last 2 months. So that was kind of an expense that we weren't expecting. We didn't stress about where that money's going to come from or have to call mom and dad and ask them to help us out because we had an emergency fund. We knew that money was there. Now our first goal once we get our car back is to get that emergency fund back up to the limit it's supposed to be at.
That's right. We had to dip into our emergency fund, but we've already built it back up and we're actually I think we need $300-400 more in the emergency fund, and we have a payment prepping, another small payment to throw towards our student loans.
Woot woot. And that's why if you are paying off debt, that's another reason why that emergency fund is so important, so you don't miss a payment. Okay, so now that we talked about why it's important, how do you actually make it happen? Let's do it. So first you need to figure out how much you specifically want to put into your emergency fund, because everybody's emergency fund is going to be a little bit different. How do you figure out how much money do you need? Michael, how much money do you need in your emergency fund?
Well, Deborah.
Tell us.
It is, you really have to assess your own personal finances to decide that number. So go ahead and take out that budget we built last week.
And if you haven't watched our budget video, it'll be right here again. go ahead and pause this video, watch that video quick, and then come back and press play again on this one. Regardless, before you actually create your emergency fund specifically, you're going to need to start with what your budget is. And why is that so important?
The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our budget and we're going to take all the items in the budget that matter, that actually matter, and look through it line by line and decide the things that can be stripped for this scenario. Not for life. We're not planning this out that you're going to kill Netflix right now.
When we first made our budgets, we created an entertainment fund. We had some space to eat out. All of those things are going to get stripped in this scenario.
Take those line items of probably rent, food, gas, so you can get to job interviews to get that new job. Take those items, add them together. That's our first thing. We're going to call that from now on our cost of living. Also, when building out that cost of living, please do not forget your minimum payments on all of your debts.
Because remember that they are still expecting you to pay those minimum payments. Sally Mae does not care that you got a flat tire on the freeway or that your car got stolen. They don't care about those things. You still have to make your minimum payments, so you have to still treat your minimum payments as a cost of living.
Now that we have our cost of living added up, we want you to think about your current employment situation. You might have a super steady job. You've worked for 15 years. You might be unemployed. You might be a freelancer. Think about that job and think about the risk level it has involved. If you have a super steady job you've been in for a while, you probably only need a 1 to 3 month emergency fund. The concept here is we're trying to build up a fund that we could live off of for 1 to 3 months. Simultaneously, if you have a freelance situation, you're an entrepreneur or a photographer or whatever, you might make all of your income for the next 3 months in 2 weeks.
Right.
So I would advise to have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund for you, just because you could hit a dry spell. What happens if you drop your camera and you don't have insurance on it? Right. What happens if you break a leg and you can't go to weddings to shoot those shots? 3 to 6 months is going to be a nice, healthy emergency fund for those high risk.
Well, and when you're thinking about how big of an emergency fund, I know that it's a little bit, we're like, well, I'll try this or this or this or this. There's a little bit of a quantitative number side of things, and there's also a little bit of a qualitative, you're going to have to just kind of figure it out and feel it out as you go along. And as you move through your debt process, your debt payoff process, you'll start getting the sense of like, you know what, if I'm really being honest with myself, I probably could throw an extra $1,000 in my emergency fund.
Also important to remember, this number is going to change. It's a moving target. Every time there's a major life change happening around you, you need to reassess your emergency fund. We've had emergency funds as little as $1,000 and I think as high as $6,000. Right. It's all based off of risk. And risk is tricky because it's personal and you're basically assigning math to personal feeling.
Great. So now that we have our monthly expenses and how many months we want to plan for our emergency fund, it's just some simple math. You literally just take the amount of time that you want your emergency fund to last you for and multiply it by your cost of living. That'll give you a basic idea of how much money you're going to need if you could not make another cent in that given amount of time.
If you've got some weird number, if it's like $4,732, round up to an easy to remember number, because you're always going to be looking at your emergency fund and making sure that it's at that number.
And that should give you an honest, real amount of money that you're going to need. Trust it. Trust that that is a good amount.
Do not go lower than $1,000. Okay, so we've got our number. We know how much we need to save up. What do you do now? Well, we got to figure out where to put it. I recommend a high interest savings account. If you're not comfortable with having a separate account from your checking, because I would argue your current bank most likely has crap interest rates. Most savings accounts these days have like 0.1%, which is nothing. We use Ally, and this isn't an ad for Ally. We use Ally. It's an online-only savings account company, and they have some great other features. I think I'll do an Ally video at some point and talk about all their useful features for paying off debt. They have a 1.6% interest rate on their savings accounts, which is really good. And it's it's gone up like 0.05% every like couple of months. I think when we started it was like 1.3 and now it's at 1.55 or 1.6.
But the point is that you just need somewhere to store your funding. So if figuring out like the specific perfect location is kind of daunting, just put it in a savings account for now. I would say
we'll link to Ally below, but you can check out others. You could
what
also
are some other
you could do
places?
You could do an envelope I don't love this because if your house burns down and your emergency fund burns down, that's a problem. But you could do that.
Stolen.
So places not to store your money.
Right.
A investment. Any sort of investment of any kind
Right.
is not a place to put an emergency fund. Don't do CDs. This one's tempting too, but you can't pull that money out for 12 months.
Right.
That's defeats the entire purpose. And then any other financial location that's hard to reach, stay away from it. Savings is like the most complicated I would ever touch.
Right. Remember, you're trying to be able to use this money in case of an emergency.
Yep.
And if you can't get to it, it's not a very good. If you can't get to the life raft, it's not a very good life raft.
That's exactly.
Ooh.
That's so dang.
That's good.
That's a pretty good. That was a lot of knowledge you just dropped. That's pretty good.
Knowledge drop. Okay, so we know how much money we need.
Check.
We have a location where that money's going to go.
Check, check.
But right now, in this very moment, as you're watching this video, you might still be trying to pay off your loan stuff. So how do you figure out how to start putting money into an emergency fund versus paying off your minimum payments? So that's where your budget comes in, very strong. Basically, you're almost going to create a line item in your budget for your emergency fund as you start building it. Think about it as another loan you have to pay off, an important one for yourself.
The most important one.
So you're paying off your needs, you're paying off your rent, your car's gas, all those things that cost of living that you have to do. So you've paid that off. You've paid your minimum payments, not extras yet, minimum payments on your student loans. All of the extra until you satisfy how much you're wanting to have in your emergency fund. All the rest of your money is going to go into that emergency fund. We're not going to worry about blasting our loans yet. That will come.
Brace yourself.
The first thing that you're going to do is build up that emergency fund. So let's fast forward 3 months or so, depending on how long you need to be able to pay off to build up your emergency fund. Now we have our emergency fund. We have $5,000. We'll go with ours. We have $5,000 in our emergency fund. Woo-hoo!
Good job.
Good job.
Good job.
You rock. Uh-oh. Emergency happens, and you just lost $1,200 in your emergency fund.
No. It's fine. We had $5,000 set aside. It's no big deal.
Guess what? Your next main priority is to get that emergency fund back up. That is your first thing you're doing after the emergency to set yourself back up for success.
So once it's
Always
good,
want it full.
Once it's good, go back to killing those loans. The goal is to avoid missing payments and to avoid racking up more interest. Another scenario, if you don't have an emergency fund and you blow a tire and you got no money, all of a sudden you reach for your credit card and you take that out and you buy some tires and you just built more debt.
Remember, I'm going to keep saying this over and over again in these videos. We're trying to get ourselves out of the hole.
That's right.
Not dig a bigger hole.
So this is basically just a big emergency backhoe behind you to move a pile of... Dang,
son.
Wait.
Kind of got scared and I avoided in the last second because I didn't want to
You're
hurt my fingers.
awkward at this.
Ow. Okay, I got it. Here we go. Ow! So once you've built your emergency fund, woohoo!
Congratulations. You're amazing.
That is awesome. So many people do not have an emergency fund. It's actually kind of scary. We were two of those people.
Yeah.
We never had an emergency fund, but emergencies do happen. And if you've lived this life for any amount of time, you know that happens.
What are you doing? You having a seizure? I think she was trying to go...
Yeah, you're hot and good job and debt payoff.
Cut this part out, Deborah. Just to kind of recap everything we just said, because it's kind of screwy and a little bit of words. Your workflow should look like this. Ask yourself this question. Is my emergency fund at the dollar amount that it's supposed to be? If you answer no, go ahead and take all the extra money you earn every month and throw it at the emergency fund until it's full. Once you're able to answer yes, take that money, throw it at that worst loan.
So now that you have your emergency fund concept down, next week we are going to actually start looking at how to tackle our bad spending habits.
Yeah.
We all have bad spending habits. Michael and I, we can tell you right now.
Avocado
Food.
toast.
Avocado toast. Not avocado toast. Eating out,
But we're
groceries.
millennials.
Vegan millennials.
Oh my gosh, are we cliche or what?
Gosh, we're
Vegan
such a
millennials with
cliche.
student debt and a English bulldog.
Oh, we're so basic.
Oh. For real.
So we're going to tackle our biggest issue, which we find is kind of a lot of other people's issue, which is eating out and all things food. So we're going to look at food, eating out,
Grocery
groceries,
store,
our budget for alcohol,
coupon clippings.
all of those kind of things.
Was that a clipping?
That was me clipping a coupon. Really hope that you guys please tune in for that.
Yep.
So if you liked this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up.
Yeah.
That really lets us know that you're getting something out of this content. It really encourages us to just keep doing it, keep putting these videos out there and that somebody is watching them. Also, like Michael said, if you like this video, please be sure to leave a comment down below.
If you're brand new to our channel and just checking us out for the first time, first of all, thank you so much for watching.
So if you haven't already, please feel free to hit that subscribe button so that you can stay up to date with everything that we have going on. And if you are already subscribed, also hit that notification bell, bing, 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 and that will let you know when our next videos are out.
That was a terrible bell sound.
Bing, bing, bing. Thank you so much for watching.
Have an amazing day.
Bye!
Bye.